Here we are at Mission 6, Lesson 9, where our student objective is to use the place value chart and metric measurements to compare decimals and answer comparison questions. So essentially what that means is today we're going to be comparing decimals and determining which is greater than, if we're given two decimals, which one is greater than the other decimal. Okay, so let's look at a few general rules here about what we look for when we're comparing decimals to determine which is the greater number. Let's say that we're given these two decimals and we are asked to compare them to figure out, okay, which one is greater than the other. So we have 34 hundredths and 44 hundredths. Now, I understand you in your head might be right now like, oh, I know which one's the greater one. Okay, I get that, but let's walk through our steps right here. So the first thing you need to look for, if you are comparing two numbers with decimals, the first rule that you need to look for is this. So let's make a little welcome to Mr. Morson's virtual classroom here, where rules for comparing decimals. So our first rule is to look at the whole number. Look at the whole number. If one has a whole number and the other doesn't, that is automatically bigger. If you notice one of the whole numbers is greater than the other, then that's all you need to know. So for instance, let's say in these numbers, I had 9 and 34 hundredths, and I had, let's change these up, 8 and 44 hundredths. So the first thing I'm going to look at is just the number before the decimal, which is the whole number. So I have 9 here, and I have 8 here. Well, what's bigger, 9 or 8? Well, hopefully we know at this point that 9 is a greater number than 8. Hopefully we realize that at this point. Otherwise, we might need to go back a few grades here. So knowing that 9 is greater than 8, I can stop right there. I don't even need to look at the other decimal. I can say, nope, I'm done. Nope, I'm done. I can be done right now because I know 9 is greater than 8. I can say, if I was writing it out here, I can say that 9 and 3/4 is greater than 8 and 44 hundredths. Easy enough. So look at the whole number first. Now, I'm going to just change these back so they're both 0 whole numbers. So now let's look at it in the case of, well, we have 0 wholes in each of these. So my first rule, I look at the whole numbers first. Determine which is greater there. And if they're both the same, or they're both 0, then my second rule is, after the decimal, back to the classroom, work from left to right. So we're just going to work from left to right, looking at each place value. So now we're just going to work from left to right, looking at each place value. So here, when I left to right, I mean the tenths place and then to the hundredths place. So left to right. And okay, I'm going to look here. What's the number I have in the tenths place here? I have a 3. And what's the number I have in the tenths place here? I have a 4. So after each stop now, I'm going to ask myself, okay, is one of those numbers greater than the other? Well, 4 tenths right here in the tenths place is greater than 3 tenths in the tenths place for this number. So what does that tell me? That tells me that I can stop. And I know that this number is going to be the greater number because this has 4 tenths and this only has 3 tenths. Right? Now, what if it's the case where, let's alter these up a little bit here. If I can. Where's my pointer? There's pointer. Let's say they had the same in the tenths place. Okay, so now, again, I'm just going to look at my whole numbers first. There's 0, and we have 0, and then I'm just going to work from left to right. So I'm going to look at the tenths place. Whoop, didn't mean to move that. Back to the pen. So I see I have a 4 tenths in that number, and I have a 4 tenths in that number. So what does that tell me? That tells me I don't know. I still don't know which one is greater. I still can't tell because they're both 4. So then what do? I just move from left to right. So now I just move to the right a space. I'm going to look at the hundredths spot. And I have 5 hundredths here, and I have 2 hundredths here. Which is greater, 5 hundredths or 2 hundredths? Well, I know that 5 is greater than 2. So therefore, this number is the greater number. 45 hundredths is greater than 42 hundredths. That's how we're comparing these numbers, just kind of moving from left to right here. So let's take it a step further, and let's say we're given these 3 numbers. We have 3 tenths, we have 28 hundredths, and we have 35 hundredths. And we want to tell which is the greatest, which is the least, and which number is in the middle. All right. Or let's put them in order, in other words. So, okay, I'm just going to start by comparing 2 of the numbers at a time. So notice right here, I'm just going to compare the 3 tenths and the 28 hundredths. All right, now I'm going to start by looking at the whole numbers. Notice all of these have 0 in the whole numbers. So that really doesn't tell me much. That just tells me, okay, now I just need to go into the decimal range and we'll start working from left to right. All right, so notice here, I have 3 in the tenths place, in this 3 tenths. In this number, I have 2 in the tenths place. And in this number, I have 3 in the tenths place. Okay, so automatically right now, with these 3, I can tell that 2 of them are greater than the other. And which 2 are greater? It's the one with the 3 in the tenths place. So this one and this one are both greater than this middle one because of the tenths place, because they both have 3s, 3 and 3, and this one just has a 2. So I can tell automatically that, I'm just going to reorder them here. Get out of here. That is going to be the smallest of the 3. It has the least value because there's a 2 in the tenths place. Now I want to determine between the 3 tenths and the 35 hundredths, which is greater. Okay? So now I'm just focusing on this one and this one. Well, again, I start at the whole number, and we determined that, hey, they're both 0, right? Now, since they're both 0, I just work from left to right. Now I'm just looking at the tenths place. Well, there's a 3 here and a 3 here. So they're both the same. So then I just work from left to right. So now this is where it might get a little tricky, because let's look at the hundredths place, the next place value. In this number, I see that there are 5. But I don't see anything here. I don't see any number in the hundredths place here. So if I don't see anything, what does that really tell me? How many hundredths are there? There are 0 hundredths. And it can be rewritten just like that. You could rewrite it as 30 hundredths in this case. Well, now I can easily compare. Well, what's greater, 0 or 5? Well, 5 is greater than 0. So that tells me that this number, 35 hundredths, is greater than the 30 hundredths. So if I was comparing these and putting them all in order, I would say 28 hundredths is less than 30 hundredths, and 30 hundredths is less than 35 hundredths. And that would be these numbers in order. So that's what we're doing in today's lesson. We're comparing fractions and putting them in order. So again, first look at the whole number. Look at the whole number first. If one of the whole numbers is bigger, if you have 222 whole numbers in one and 52 whole numbers in the other, well, the 222 is going to be greater because 222 is a lot bigger than 52. And then if they have the same whole number or they both don't have any whole number, then you're just going to work from left to right in the decimals. So start with the tenths place and then work your way to the hundredths place if you need to. And that's how you can compare decimal numbers.